training camp preview tight end position. And if you followed us, Kevin, which I know you had because you do this with us, this is a big position for the Jets, especially with all the change at wide receiver, the offense, how it could potentially start out. So you have Ryan Griffin coming off injury, Chris Herndon coming off injury, but they both have a lot of potential. Start with Ryan Griffin first. Great safety valve for the Jets last year. Came out of nowhere, became a touchdown machine, became a reliable target for Sam Darnold, a good weapon. Then you look at Chris Herndon, who has all the talent in the world. You can get him on the field. To me, if you have these two guys in the middle that are so talented, it can offset your potential concerns at wide receiver. You know what I mean? It could be a threat over the middle. You can do different things with them, open up the passing game, open up play action pass, help the running game. I mean, it's just a matter of keeping them healthy, dude.
Yeah, this is one position that I'm actually pretty excited about that I think a lot of fans and even, personnel guys around the league just underrate for the Jets. Chris Herndon, we all expected a lot from him last year, and then, he had the suspension to start and then a hamstring injury, so he never got on the field. But, the last 2 years at training camp, he was Sam Darnold's security blanket. Probably saw more targets than any other tight end or receiver, I would think, throughout the rest of camp. Just always featured. And I feel like Sam and Herndon really had a good chemistry together. So I think when you look at his athletic ability, his profile, he can stretch the field a little bit over the middle. I think Herndon has that number one tight end ability. And then when you look at what Ryan Griffin did last year, pretty much starting all year, good run blocker, can catch as well. I think he had like 5 touchdowns, and I think with the Texans he had about 50 catches one year as a starter. So I think that's a nice 1-2 punch to have right there. You have both guys on the field at once. Herndon, he isn't a bad blocker as well. So yeah, go with some 2 tight end packages to offset some of your deficiencies at wide receiver. I like that position. So
yeah, and then the thing with Herndon is he has the ability to where you can feature him in your offense. Like if you can feature him and get things going over the middle, then the Jets can spread the ball deep to Perryman and Mims on the outside. It gives you, it opens up all your downfield passing game. But I think he could be a guy you actually go to, like your go-to guy. I think he has that much potential. He's that good. You know what I mean? But the question is, will Adam Gase do that? Will he go that route? And then it's like, can these guys be consistent blockers too?
I actually think he will, because Adam Gase, this isn't really a knock, but he does like the short passing game, within 10 yards, let guys, make the catch and then run after the catch. That's, a big part of his offense. And especially with some of the holes that, we might see on the offensive line or with communication issues, you want to get the ball out of Sam's hand as quick as possible. So a guy like Herndon, he can make plays after the catch as well. He's got the speed to do it. Feature him. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing too is, to me, my honest hope is that they start the season off ground and pound, where they feature the running game behind Becton, get it going, because with the offensive line with so many changes, I think running the ball will be the easiest way to get everybody gel together. But if you want to do that, you need to have tight ends that can block consistently and not be a liability. The last thing you want is Chris Herndon comes in the game, everybody's like, oh, they're going to pass the ball because they can't block. They got to be consistent all the way around. And that maybe even Trayvon Wesco, everybody's kind of high on him. I think he has a lot to prove, but,
Well, that was one of the things that surprised me a little bit about Chris Herndon, because when he first came up, I expected him to be a liability as a blocker, and I didn't feel that way as a rookie. He had his ups and downs, but I didn't feel like, there was any point in time where you were like, oh, my God, we got to get this guy off the field. He's getting Sam killed back there. And, yeah, you mentioned Trayvon Wesco also. I'll always bring up the baby Gronk comparison, but listen, obviously for Baldinger, who's a respected analyst, to make that kind of comparison, you have to at least think there's some ability in there. Whether or not he can actually get on the field, or Gase is going to use him as the third tight end, or like in a fullback, H-back kind of role. I think that could be interesting. We don't have a fullback right now. I know Le'Veon Bell all those years in Pittsburgh, he had a fullback in front of him. So if you can maybe mold Wesco into a role like that, or even go with like some 3 tight end packages, go extra jumbo, run the ball, that would be cool too. So I'm fine with that.
No, that's I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping they use them. To me, it's like you got to look like I have concerns about wide receiver. I'm like you, dude. Like you have legitimate talent at tight end position. You just got to hope Herndon stays healthy, dude. Like that's like to me, he's like that boomer bust player. Like it's funny because you're like, oh, who could be your breakout player? Herndon. Who could be your biggest disappointment? Herndon. Because like if he doesn't play this year, it's like another year lost, and we don't know what he is. But if he's healthy, what is a realistic expectation for catches this year?
Over 60.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think he has that ability, yeah. And I don't think that's anything crazy. I think Dustin Keller had a couple of years where he approached that number. And I think Herndon has every, bit we'll be talking about that tomorrow night, some of the old Jets rosters. But yeah, I think Herndon definitely kind of has a similar profile like that.
Yeah, and you can even say if he even gets 55 or 50 catches and Ryan Griffin gets 35, That's 80 grabs, man. And that keeps your offense moving. And especially if, like you said, if you want to go that shorter passing game, if you have those consistent targets that have to be accounted for at all times, where the safety has to watch them or the linebackers have to watch them, that frees up your speed on the outside, man. Or you can start doing your play action pass, like I said earlier, where it's like, listen, you got, you pump it, boom, go and see what happens. But they have to find weapons that hold people accountable. And that's my biggest concern. Like we talked about it. Like you need people that are going to say, okay, listen, we can't stack the box every time because we're getting beat by player X. And Chris Herndon could be the X factor. He could be the guy that keeps everybody off their toes, on their toes. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think, we keep talking about this as well, but I think a lot of it's on Gase to kind of maximize what he has. We can sit here and acknowledge that they might not have a number one wide receiver, but a lot of Jets teams in the past haven't had that true number one. But they had, a good core group. They had an offensive line that was able to ground and pound. So utilize what you have. You have veterans on the O-line. You just invested a first-round pick. This unit should be much improved as long as, the chemistry issues are resolved in training camp. And you have a feature back in Bell who should be getting the ball, 20, 25 times a game. So that should be your bread and butter on offense, and you work off of that. And then you start getting Chris Herndon involved. You start taking some deep shots with Perriman and Mims, and you go from there. You get Crowder involved. He's a guy who can catch 80 balls as well. So I think they do have some weapons on offense. It's just a matter of how they're utilized.
Yeah, so, if we're summarizing things, to me, the tight end position, considering that hoping they stay healthy, is an area of strength. Like, I think, you made a great point. I think they're underrated. I think people don't realize the talent they have. They just got to prove it. And I think if they do, it'd be a complete asset to Sam.
And if you're talking about blocking as well, Daniel Brown, he's not really a guy that's going to be a threat as a receiver, but, he's been around for a couple of years, I'm pretty sure. And, yeah, he's a good run blocker, good pass blocker. If you're looking, for a fourth tight end, special teams guy, I think he's somebody that, can contribute as well. So we're pretty deep at that position.
See, now people say we're always negative. See, this was a completely positive video here. Like, we actually accomplished a positive video. Let's see.
Stay tuned for the receivers next.
Yeah, look out for that one.